I bet you didn't know the shocking details behind Diddy's new indictment. Sean Diddy Combs, the once untouchable hip-hop mogul, found himself facing a legal nightmare. What began as a whisper of accusations had escalated into a deafening roar. The charges against him were staggering, the accusations horrifying. Kidnapping, arson, drug trafficking, sex trafficking. The man who built an empire on music and charisma was now accused of exploiting the very people who fueled his success. Diddy's carefully crafted facade of success and philanthropy crumbled. Behind the expensive suits and dazzling smile lurked a dark side, one that law enforcement claimed had been operating with impunity for decades. The indictment, a damning document filled with chilling details, painted a picture of a man who used his power and influence to control and manipulate those around him. As the prosecution meticulously laid out their case, it became clear that this was not just about one or two isolated incidents. This was about a pattern of alleged criminal behavior spanning 2 decades. Victims, some of whom had remained silent for years, were finally coming forward, ready to tell their stories and seek justice. The walls were closing in on Diddy, and the world waited with bated breath to see if he would crumble under the weight of these explosive allegations. January 30th, 2025, a date forever etched in hip-hop history. A superseding indictment was filed against Sean Diddy Combs. New charges painted a disturbing portrait of Diddy. Kidnapping, alleged use of force to detain individuals. Arson, a shocking charge. Incident involving Kid Cudi's car. Drug trafficking. Expanded narcotics charges, methamphetamine and psilocin. Sex trafficking, most disturbing charge. Exploiting women for financial gain. The superseding indictment did more than just add new charges. It blew the timeline of Diddy's alleged crimes wide open, stretching the period of alleged criminal activity from 2004 to 2024. 20 years. 2 decades of alleged manipulation, violence, and exploitation. The scope of the accusations was staggering, painting a picture of a man who had been operating outside the law for far longer than anyone had suspected. Prosecutors argued that this was not a case of a few isolated incidents, but rather a deeply ingrained pattern of behavior. They pointed to a web of associates, employees, and even friends who they claimed had enabled and facilitated Diddy's alleged crimes. The indictment painted a picture of a man who had become drunk on power, believing himself to be above the law and untouchable. The extended timeline added a new layer of complexity to the case. Witnesses would need to dredge up memories from years past. Evidence would need to be meticulously pieced together from a longer period. The prosecution faced a daunting task, but they seemed determined to expose the full extent of Diddy's alleged crimes, no matter how far back they went. At the heart of the prosecution's case were the victims. Women, their identities carefully guarded, who had allegedly suffered at the hands of Sean Diddy Combs. The indictment spoke of their ordeals in stark, clinical language, but behind the legal jargon lay stories of pain, fear, and exploitation. These women described a man who used his charisma and power to manipulate them. He would shower them with gifts and promises, only to later use their vulnerabilities against them. Some spoke of being plied with drugs and alcohol, their inhibitions eroded. Others recounted tales of threats and intimidation, of being physically and emotionally abused. They lived in fear of his temper, of his connections, of the potential consequences of speaking out. The prosecution argued that Diddy's alleged crimes were not just about sex, but about power. He derived pleasure, they claimed, from controlling these women, from breaking them down and bending them to his will. Their voices, silenced for so long by fear and intimidation, were finally being heard. Section 5. Jealousy's Inferno, the Kid Cudi connection. The arson charge against Diddy sent shockwaves through the music industry, not only for its severity but for its alleged target, the car of fellow rapper Kid Cudi. This wasn't just about property damage, it was a personal attack, fueled by a volatile cocktail of professional rivalry and, according to the prosecution, a jealous rage. The incident allegedly stemmed from Diddy's relationship with singer Cassie. Diddy, still nursing a bruised ego after their highly publicized breakup, was reportedly enraged by Coodie's growing closeness to his ex-girlfriend. Witnesses claimed that Diddy, consumed by jealousy and a desire for revenge, had ordered the attack on Coodie's car. The flames that engulfed the vehicle were a physical manifestation of Diddy's inner turmoil, a desperate and dangerous act of a man spiraling out of control. The prosecution argued that Section 6. Expanding the drug empire. The initial drug trafficking charges against Diddy were already serious, but the superseding indictment expanded the scope of his alleged narcotics operation, adding a sinister layer to the case. Methamphetamine and psilocin, a powerful hallucinogenic drug, were now part of the equation, suggesting a darker, more dangerous side to Diddy's alleged criminal enterprise. Prosecutors alleged that Diddy was not just a casual user, but a key player in a vast drug distribution network. They claimed that he used his wealth and connections to obtain large quantities of narcotics, which were then trafficked across state lines and sold for enormous profits. The addition of methamphetamine and psilocin to the list of drugs painted a picture of an operation that preyed on addiction and despair, fueling the very problems that plagued communities across the country. Law enforcement officials pointed to seized shipments of drugs, intercepted communications, and the testimonies of confidential informants as evidence of Diddy's alleged involvement in the drug trade. They argued that his wealth, far from being a shield, actually made him a more dangerous criminal, providing him with the resources and influence to operate with impunity. Section 7. Diddy behind bars, a threat to society? Following his arrest in September, Sean Diddy Combs found himself in unfamiliar territory, behind bars. Denied bail and deemed a flight risk, the once celebrated mogul was now an inmate at the Metropolitan Detention Center, his every move scrutinized, his fate hanging in the balance. The prosecution, citing the serious nature of the charges and Diddy's vast wealth and resources, argued that he posed a significant flight risk. They pointed to his international connections and access to private jets, suggesting that he could easily evade justice if given the opportunity. Furthermore, the prosecution painted Diddy as a potential threat to witnesses. They argued that his wealth and influence gave him the means to intimidate or even silence those who might testify against him. The judge, swayed by the prosecution's arguments, ordered Diddy to be held without bail, deeming him a danger to society and a risk to the integrity of the judicial process. Section 8. The defense strikes back. Diddy's legal team, a formidable group of attorneys known for their aggressive tactics and courtroom prowess, came out swinging, vehemently denying all allegations against their client. They characterized the prosecution's case as a flimsy house of cards built on the testimonies of unreliable witnesses and circumstantial evidence. They argued that the alleged victims were not coerced or manipulated but rather willing participants in consensual relationships. They pointed to Diddy's reputation as a ladies' man, suggesting that his relationships, while unconventional, were always built on mutual attraction and desire. The defense team characterized the arson charge as preposterous, a desperate attempt by the prosecution to smear Diddy's name with an unrelated incident. They argued that there was no credible evidence linking Diddy to the attack on Kid Cudi's car, suggesting that it was likely the work of random vandals or a rival jealous of Cudi's success. As for the drug trafficking allegations, the defense team dismissed them as the fabrications of criminals seeking to reduce their own sentences by pointing fingers at a high-profile target. They argued that Diddy's wealth made him an easy target for such accusations, but that wealth did not equate to guilt. Justice for the alleged victims seemed prepared to throw the book at Diddy. The specter of a lengthy prison sentence loomed large, a stark reminder of the potential consequences of his alleged actions. The defense, however, appeared equally determined to fight tooth and nail to clear their client's name. They vowed to challenge every piece of evidence, to expose every inconsistency in the prosecution's case, to paint a portrait of a man wrongly accused. The world watched and waited, captivated by the unfolding drama. Would Diddy's wealth and influence be enough to shield him from justice? Or would the truth prevail, bringing a measure of closure to the alleged victims and holding a powerful figure accountable for his actions? Only time would tell. Stay tuned to Verse and Vibes TV for the latest updates on this case and more. Visit verseandvibestv.store for exclusive merchandise and support our channel.